You serve the house of Tokugawa. Spring 1636, Nikko. But do you know why the most powerful men in Japan came here year after year to bow before a man who was already dead? You don't answer yet. You simply climb the stone steps, and the gate rises in front of you. Yomemon, the gate of the setting sun, named because a person could stand before it until dusk and still not see everything carved into its face. Over 500 figures cut into wood and covered in gold leaf. Dragons coiled around pillars. Sages, children, tigers that have never seen a real tiger. Phoenixes with their wings spread mid-motion. Nothing here is empty. Nothing here is accidental. The gold catches the morning light and throws it back at you, so bright it is almost hostile. This is not the restraint you expect from a warrior's shrine. This is excess, deliberate and calculated, built to overwhelm anyone who climbs these steps. You keep looking. The longer you look, the less it feels like decoration, and the more it feels like a message aimed directly at you. Somewhere behind that gate is the answer to why you are here. But first, the gate itself has something to tell you. The gate asks something of you. To understand what, your mind goes back 20 years, to the room where the demand was first made. 1616, Sunpu Castle. You stand at the foot of his bed, where you have stood every day this month, watching a man who ruled a unified Japan grow smaller under his own blankets. The physicians have already said what needs to be said without saying it. The retainers around you know it too. No one speaks above a whisper. You expect at any moment for this to become the kind of scene you have heard described in other households. Weeping, prayers shouted at a god who is not listening, a lord's hand gripped too hard by men who cannot let go. It does not happen. Ieyasu's voice, when it comes, is quiet. Not weak, quiet, the way it always was in council, when he made men lean in rather than raising his own volume. You lean in now. He does not ask for his family. He does not ask for comfort. He gives instructions, the way he has given instructions for 50 years of war and peace, and you find yourself reaching for a brush before you have even decided to write. Bury the body at Kunozan. Not Edo, not a family temple. Kunozan, the fortress shrine southwest of here, facing the road, facing the direction from which trouble has always come. Wait 1 year, a full year of mourning, no shortcuts. Then build a small hall at Nikko, north of Edo, and move him there. And then the line that makes you stop writing for a moment, because you are not sure you have understood it correctly. So you ask him to say it again, and he does, in the same unhurried tone. He will become the guardian deity of the 8 provinces, of the Kanto region itself, not remembered, not honored, enshrined, worshipped as something above a man. You wait for him to soften it, to add some word of humility, some gesture toward the gods he is asking to join. He doesn't. He moves on to the next instruction, who informs whom, in what order and when, as though he has just settled a matter of road repairs. That is what unsettles you more than the illness does. A dying man asking to become a god should sound like fear, or vanity, or a last grasping at meaning. This sounds like none of those. It sounds like a man closing out a ledger. You write down every word exactly as he gives it, because you sense, without yet knowing why, that this is not a farewell. It is an order, and it is meant to outlive everyone in this room. The order settles over the room, and your mind moves without your bidding to a name few now speak aloud. Toyotomi Hideyoshi. You remember it clearly enough. He died in the autumn of 1598, and within the year the court had granted him a divine title, Toyokuni Daimyojin, the great illuminating deity of the bountiful country. They raised a shrine for him in Kyoto, its gates bright with new paint, and men came to bow before the spirit of the peasant who had risen to rule all of Japan. A warlord made a god. It had been done. You had watched it done. And you know, as few in this room may let themselves know, who unmade it. Only last year, the walls of Osaka fell. The Toyotomi were burned out of their last fortress, the boy heir gone, the line ended. And it was this house, this dying man's own hand, that ordered the shrine in Kyoto stripped of its honors. The rites were forbidden. The gates were let to rot. The god named Toyokuni was struck from the register of the living faith, and the people were told plainly that he was no longer to be worshipped. That silence would hold for 267 years, until an emperor in a later age thought to lift it. But you cannot know that yet. You know only what is in the room, that the man on the bed erased the last lord who reached for heaven and now asks to be lifted into the seat he emptied. You do not think it treachery. You are too old and have served too long to be surprised by it. A god who cannot protect his own house is only a name on a plaque, and Hideyoshi's house did not survive him. Perhaps that is the whole of the lesson your lord has drawn, that to be worshipped is not enough. One must also endure. So you say nothing. You fold the thought away with the others, the way a retainer learns to carry what he has seen. The chamber is quiet. The order stands. And in the hush, you understand that the work of making a god has already begun, and that it will fall, as such work always does, to the living. A year had passed. Ieyasu had asked for one, and to the day, his order was obeyed. In the spring of 1617, the second shogun, Hidetada, gave the command to move his father north. You walk in that procession now. It sets out from Kunozan, where the body was laid the year before, and turns toward the mountains of Nikko, more than 100 leagues away. What you carry you cannot entirely say. The scholars of the court call this a reburial. The word is written plainly in the records. The late lord moved from one resting place to another, and yet, walking among the bearers, you find yourself uncertain what travels with you on this road. Is it his body, born in secret beneath the coverings ahead, or only his spirit, called north while his bones remain in the earth of Kunozan? Even now, even here, you do not know. It is a question that will outlast you, argued over long after every man on this road is dust. You keep your place in the line and say nothing. Why Nikko, you had asked when the order first came. The answer given was simple and gave away little. The mountains to the north of Edo must be guarded, and the late lord had chosen to stand watch over them himself. More than that, no one explained. You did not press. When at last the procession reaches the mountain, you see what has been prepared. It is small, a modest hall of plain timber, set among the cedars, with none of the gold or lacquer you might have imagined for a man who ruled the realm. This was his own instruction, faithfully kept. A small shrine, nothing grand. Enshrine me, and let that be enough. You stand before it in the mountain quiet, a humble structure, hardly the seat of a god. It suits the restraint the old lord wore all his life. But orders given by the dead do not always bind the living, and the men who would come after had their own ideas of what this mountain should become. 20 years pass. Ieyasu is a god now, but the men who knew him are growing old, and you are one of the last who walked in that first procession. The small wooden hall you helped raise still stands beneath the cedars, plain and weathered, exactly as he wanted it. Then, in the winter of 1634, word comes down from Edo. The third shogun, Iemitsu, the grandson, has visited Nikko. He has looked at his grandfather's modest shrine, and he has found it wanting. The order is issued the following year. Tear it down, all of it, build again. What Iemitsu commands is not a repair. It is not an expansion. It is a total reconstruction, remembered afterward as the Kan-e Grand Restoration. And when you first hear the figures, you assume you have misheard them. Roughly 300,000 laborers are to be mobilized. Carpenters, Lacquerers, metalworkers, gold leaf artisans, stonemasons, and porters are summoned from across the realm and driven to Nikko. Timber is felled in distant provinces and hauled up into the mountains. Gold is measured out not in coins but in weight. You are given a share of the work below the great construction itself, counting in the rice and the men, logging the carts as they arrive, and the ledgers never stop growing. You watch a mountainside become a work site that never sleeps. They finish in 20 months. Consider what that means. A shrine that Ieyasu asked to be kept small and quiet is raised and rebuilt at a scale and speed that no ordinary labor could achieve in less than 2 years. The gate you saw at the beginning, drowning in carvings, sheathed in gold, is born here. This is where it comes from. And standing among the ledgers, you begin to understand what you are actually witnessing. Grief does not do this. Devotion does not do this. A grandson who simply missed his grandfather would have polished the old hall and left it standing because the old hall was what the old man wanted. Iemitsu did the opposite. He looked at Ieyasu's final wish for restraint, and he overruled it. He spent the treasure of the realm and the backs of 300,000 men to bury that wish under gold. That is not the arithmetic of mourning. That is the arithmetic of war. Manpower on this scale, moved this fast, is what a state assembles to besiege a fortress or crush a rebellion. Iemitsu aims it instead at a mountainside, and out of it he raises not a weapon, but an image. Because that is the point. The plain wooden shrine said, "Here rests a man who became a guardian spirit." The new shrine says something else entirely. It says, "Look at what the Tokugawa can command. Look at what we can pour out in 2 years and call it merely a tribute to one dead lord. Every daimyo who climbs this mountain will do the arithmetic you are doing now, and every one of them will arrive at the same conclusion. This is not reverence carved in cedar. It is authority, made visible, made permanent, made impossible to mistake. You close the ledgers on a shrine your first lord would not have recognized. And already you can see the next problem taking shape. A monument this vast is never finished the day it is built. It must be fed, honored, and attended, year after year, forever. The question is, who will be made to pay for it? The Kunai restoration was finished. What followed was quieter and far more permanent. In the 4th month of 1646, a procession of a different kind arrived at Nikko. It did not come from Edo. It came from Kyoto, from the imperial court itself, bearing offerings for the spirit enshrined here. This envoy was called the Raihaishi, the bearer of imperial tribute, and from that year forward, he would come every spring, without fail, for the rest of the age. Consider what you are watching. The court in Kyoto was the oldest authority in the land. For centuries, the shogun had been, in theory, the emperor's servant, granted his title from the throne. That was the proper order of things, the fiction everyone agreed to honor. And now, each year, that same court dispatched a man to travel the long road to the mountains and lay tribute before the tomb of a warlord. A soldier, a man who had clawed his way to power with armies and who was, above all, dead. So this was the answer. The most powerful men in Japan did not come here for the living. They came to bow before the dead, because the dead man's house now ordered the shape of everything, even the reverence of emperors. The court did not command Ieyasu's shrine, it attended it. That was the symbolic half of the machine. The other half was made of money and stone. The complex demanded endless upkeep, gold leaf dulls, timber rots, lacquer cracks under mountain winters. Repairs and new construction never truly stopped, and the cost of them was not borne by the shogunate alone. Instead, it was distributed, domain by domain, through what was called the Nikko construction assistance duty. In turn, a daimyo would be assigned to fund the labor, the materials, the craftsmen for a given project. When his turn came, he paid. Then the burden rotated to the next house. It was not a pilgrimage. No lord was required to kneel here each year. What was required was silver and men, and the quiet acceptance that one's own treasury could be opened by the shogun's word at any time. It worked much as the alternate attendants did, keeping the great houses too occupied with expense to grow dangerous. A domain drained is a domain that does not rebel. Your own service touched the edges of all this. You helped tally what the domain sent, watched the assigned crews come and go, noted which lord had answered his turn and which had been slow. There was no grand office for it yet, no magistrate of Nikko. It was simply work that needed doing, and you did it. And so the shrine became what its builders never quite said aloud, not only a tomb, an instrument, one that humbled the court every spring and emptied the domains in turn, year upon year, exactly as promised. The men who built this are gone now. What they built still stands. The question is what it means to those who climb these steps today. The men who built this are gone. What they built still stands. To understand what it means to those who climb these steps today, it helps to set aside a few things the guidebooks get wrong. Nikko Toshogu's own official website describes the shrine as guarding the Kimon of Edo, the Demon Gate, the northeast direction that on Myoto cosmology held to be inauspicious, the quarter from which misfortune was believed to enter. It is a compelling story, and it is repeated on signboards and in tour brochures across the region. It is also, strictly speaking, imprecise. The true northeast of Edo Castle was already accounted for. It was guarded by Kan-Eiji, the great temple raised in Ueno by the monk Tenkai, the same advisor who shaped so much of what happened at Nikko. Nikko does not sit to the northeast of Edo. It sits almost due north. Its real cosmological logic is not the Demon Gate at all, but Hokushin Hokuto Shinko, the worship of the pole star. Ieyasu's enshrined spirit was identified with the North Star, the single fixed point around which the entire sky turns, set to the north of the capital to anchor it, to steady it, to hold the heavens in place above the shogunate he founded. The distinction is quiet, but it changes the meaning of the whole mountain. There is a second question the shrine has never fully answered. Shogunate records describe the move to Nikko in 1617 as a reburial, a formal transfer of the body from Kunozan. Modern historical research suggests something different, that what traveled north was most likely a bunrei, a division of the spirit, carried in procession by way of a mirror, a lock of hair, or clippings of nail, while the physical remains stayed where they had first been laid at Kunozan. Neither shrine has ever permitted its grave to be opened. And so, the question stands, formally unresolved, as it has for 4 centuries. Both Kunozan Toshogu and Nikko Toshogu are honored as the resting place of Ieyasu, and both, in their way, may be right. The carvings hold their own smaller mysteries. Above the entrance to the corridor that leads toward the inner tomb, the Okusha, sits the Nemuri Neko, the sleeping cat, attributed to the sculptor Hidari Jingoro. It is said to have been inspired by a Zen phrase about a cat dozing beneath peony blossoms, an image of perfect peace, an animal so untroubled it sleeps even where it might hunt. Most visitors, having seen it enlarged on posters for years, are startled by how small it truly is in person. Nearby stands the sacred stable, the Shinkyusha, completed in 1636, and alone among all the buildings in the precinct and being left as plain, unlacquered wood, without a trace of gold or color. Its panels carry the 3 wise monkeys. Monkeys were long believed to protect horses from illness, which is why they appear here, on a stable, and nowhere else. The famous trio, see no evil, hear no evil, speak no evil, is the image the whole world knows. But it is only one panel of 8. Together, the 8 tell a continuous story, the stages of a single human life from childhood to parenthood, unfolding across the wall. Almost no one who stops to photograph the famous 3 ever notices the other 7. There is one last thread to follow, back to the beginning. When the Meiji Restoration lifted the ban that had erased Toyotomi Hideyoshi's shrine for 267 years, Toyokuni Shrine was rebuilt in Kyoto. It still stands, but it stands in obscurity, a modest stop for history enthusiasts, quiet on most days. Nikko Toshogu draws visitors from every continent, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, among the most visited shrines in all of Japan. 2 warlords were raised to the rank of gods. One faded into a footnote. The other's monument became a mountain that the world comes to see. For those who wish to see it, Nikko Toshogu is part of the World Heritage Site known as the Shrines and Temples of Nikko, reached from Tokyo by JR or Tobu Rail to Nikko Station and local transport from there. Admission fees are set independently by each shrine and temple within the precinct and are best confirmed on the official site before visiting. These are the facts of the place as far as they can be known. But facts are not the whole of why people keep climbing these steps. To understand that, it helps to stand where they stand. The Nikko Toshogu Shrine at dusk, its steps quiet. You have seen now what it took to turn a man into a god. The imperial court, sending its envoys up these mountain roads to pay tribute to a warlord's spirit. The great lords, made to empty their treasuries year after year through construction duties passed from house to house until obedience itself was built into timber and gold leaf. And the line that was never quite drawn, between the ground where his body was laid and the far shrine where only his spirit was said to travel. All of it arranged, all of it deliberate. So consider one thing before you go. When loyalty is owed to a man, it can be questioned, withdrawn, refused. But when that same loyalty is owed to a god, when the one you serve has been placed beyond the reach of any argument, is your obedience still a thing you have chosen, or only a thing you have inherited? That question was built here, into every gate and every carving. It has not been answered in 400 years. We will leave it with you. We are still working to get closer to the history behind Japan's castles and shrines, the parts that are disputed and the parts still standing. If that pursuit interests you, subscribe, and we will see you in the next one.